Greetings everyone, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, and I'm back to bring you another episode review from Season 8 of The Loud House. So let's get right into it. Today's episode is Dollars and Cents. In this episode, Leni and Miguel team up to sell bottles of perfume, but their homemade concoction leaves Miguel desperate for more, and this leads to Leni getting very overworked. Most of the time, whenever an episode is taking place at the mall, Leni is usually the main character and her co-workers are the supporting cast. This time it's the opposite, with Miguel being the one in the spotlight and Leni as the secondary character. I honestly thought Fiona had a better chance at being the first of Leni's co-workers to get a spotlight episode, but that honor goes to Miguel, and I think he did a good job. We get a little more development on his character when we discover he has always dreamt of making and selling his own brand of perfume called Swell. He's given the opportunity to live out that dream at Reininger's, but it doesn't go over very well. The stuff he was trying to sell at the beginning was so foul that it was more of a repellent than an attraction, which actually proved to be quite useful when he used it later to get rid of an angry mob. But when he saw how much Cheryl and Meryl were gravitating towards the homemade scent coming from Leni, Miguel decided to recreate her special formula into a new kind of perfume. All it needed was one key ingredient: Leni's sweat. Indeed, her sweat was the substance that made Lenergy perfume smell so good, and it proved to be a huge moneymaker. This prompted Mrs. Carmichael to commission the two of them to make 10,000 bottles of their perfume, and it's at that point you know exactly where the story is going. It's very similar to that one episode of The Fairly Odd Parents where Timmy made a fortune selling lemonade with the secret ingredient being Cosmo's sweat. What Timmy did to Cosmo is pretty much the same thing Miguel does to Leni, making his friend sweat by any means necessary, some being more extreme than others, and then collecting the fluid which would then go towards their high-selling product. What's interesting to note here is that Miguel wasn't doing all of this because he was being greedy and wanted to make tons of money. It was actually Mrs. Carmichael who wanted the money, and she put Miguel in a very compromising position. If he couldn't fulfill the 10,000 orders his boss promised her customers, his reputation in the perfume business would be destroyed, as if he really had such a reputation to begin with. And Mrs. Carmichael was not going to keep investing in something that wasn't going to be financially beneficial. From a business perspective, Mrs. C was not wrong in what she was saying. Plus, Miguel was worried no one would take him seriously as a perfume salesman ever again, so it was understandable why he did what he felt he had to do to Leni. Now, in fairness, Leni was totally fine with all the exercise she was doing for Miguel in the beginning because she wanted to do a good thing for her friend. However, she started to feel very tired and very run down, but Miguel kept trying to make her sweat by subjecting her to very hot conditions, leaving his friend more wiped out than she was before. This leads to Miguel assuming he gave Leni heat stroke and sending his bestie to the hospital. However, the one who ended up in the emergency room was actually Mrs. Carmichael, who fell off her rolling stepladder while changing light bulbs, something she had been doing throughout the episode. Leni overhears Miguel confessing and apologizing to an extremely bandaged Mrs. Carmichael about taking advantage of his bestie, and he decides to stop using his friend's perfume formula and go back to perfecting the stuff he tried to sell earlier. The two friends reconcile, and while Miguel was getting all emotional, one of his tears fell into his perfume bottle, resulting in a more pleasant smelling aroma than he had before. So apparently in this universe, certain bodily fluids are the secret ingredients to making great perfume. Leni has her sweat, and Miguel has his tears. I don't know if that's supposed to be very innovative or downright disgusting. But hey, if that's what it takes to make Cheers for Tears perfume, I say keep on crying, dude. That fishbowl isn't going to fill itself. Overall, this episode was kinda like Leni and Miguel's friendship. A little sour here and there, kinda salty at various points. I really hope someone gets the joke. And still coupled together with a few sweet moments throughout. Miguel did a pretty good job at handling himself as the central character, Leni had her usual moments of adorableness, and seeing this co-worker relationship go through a rough patch made for an interesting story. Just like Mrs. Carmichael, Miguel technically came off as an antagonist and was looking out more for himself than the well-being of a fellow employee. Still, when viewed from a business perspective, you have to understand the position both he and Carmichael found themselves in. Of course, this doesn't justify what Carmichael forced upon Miguel and what Miguel subsequently forced upon Leni, which would be making her sweat to the point of total exhaustion. But at a minimum, I can at least understand why they both did what they did. Leni may have been done dirty given what she had to endure, but as we've seen previously, she has too big of a heart to hold a grudge against anyone, especially one of her co-workers. Since this is probably going to be the only time in Season 8 where she has any sort of leading role, this was by all all metrics a pretty standard Leni specific episode. She rarely ever has a bad episode, and thankfully this isn't one of them. With that said, I give Dollars and Cents a 9 out of 10. Well folks, that concludes my review of Dollars and Cents. So I gotta ask, what did you guys think of this episode? Sound off in the comments below, and be sure to click that subscribe button for more Loud House related content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, signing off. Peace out, home slices.